Thank you. Good morning. 3/4 full. Not bad. Okay, so I'm here. I'll expand a bit on what Donald touched on in Malaysia. I'm here to talk to you about 3 major hotspots, which are the places that are doing well in Malaysia today. But before we delve into the actual hotspots, let's take a little bit of time to look at some data. A speaker's biggest nightmare is 2 screens, because he doesn't know which one to focus on. Yeah? So I'll focus on this one, and I'll go there sometimes, right? Okay, let's look at some data from Malaysia. I want you to look at this chart now. I've tried to track transactions from 2011, because 2010 to 2011, 2011 to 2012, the market swooped upwards quite drastically. And in some areas, it went up by 30-35%. There was one area in Kuala Lumpur that went up by 72% in 1 year. So this kind of growth is no good for anybody, because what happens is it's too fast and the market deflates, which is exactly what it did in 2012, 2013, and 2014. But if you look at the transactions, in 2011, we did 430,000 transactions nationwide to a tune of 137 billion ringgit. That's a lot of money. But in 2012, because of some guidelines set by Bank Negara Malaysia, which is the equivalent of your, what, MAS? Yes, the equivalent of your MAS. Bank Negara now said you cannot borrow, you cannot lend money up to 90% or up to 100%. So in 2012, they imposed some guidelines that said you cannot lend so much to the property sector. If it was your third property, you can only borrow 70%, and borrowing guidelines became very stringent, and the market just sort of fell. So from 430,000 transactions, it went to 427,000 transactions, which represented about 4-5% fall. Not very big, but if you notice, the total value went up from 137 to 142 billion. So even though transactions fell, the volume, the value went up. This is the equivalent of if you're on an aeroplane, suddenly you have a bit of turbulence and you fall a bit. You just have a small little fall, and that's what happened here. Then subsequently, they found that the cooling measures weren't working. So in October 2012, they imposed even more measures that would take effect in 2013. And that made the market fall from 427,000 to 381,000. Now, this is a whopping 10.9% fall. That's a big one. That's again, using the analogy of the plane. That's when your plane goes boom, and then your stomach goes straight up to your throat, and you think, oh, I'm dying. Yeah. Okay, so you see, from 427, it went to 381. So 10.9%, big drop. Seriously big drop, because the market was reacting very badly to all these cooling measures that the government imposed. But strangely enough, the value went from 142 to 152 billion. So these two graphs were crossing each other, which is why no property expert could predict what the market was going to behave like. And in 2014, the same thing happened. That's why, Donald, your graph shows a -7 in value. But that is actually first half. The second half figures are not out yet. So they've computed first half. Yes, first half it dipped, right? It dipped again. But what I did, I just multiplied it by 2. Actually, that's slightly wrong, because in Malaysia, traditionally, the second half performs slightly better than the first half. Because first half, we got the New Year holidays, Chinese New Year, everything, things are a bit slow. So I just multiplied it by 2, and I got 386,000 transactions instead of 381. Now, I may not be 100% accurate, but I think I'm almost there. This leads me to believe that the downward spiral in Malaysia is over, and the market is now leveling out a little bit. Yeah, maybe if it's down, just down by a few percent. If it's up, just up by a few percent. I put it into a graph. I'll show you. This is a nice graph to see. You must. If you're going to be a property investor in Malaysia, you must understand this graph. The perception is that the primary market is huge and the secondary market is small. But actually, the red portion is the primary market. And if you look at the primary market, every year, I can track this for 5 years or 10 years, every year the primary market consists merely of between 15 to 20% of the entire market in general for residential. Yeah, for residential. And residential in Malaysia comprise about 65% of the total market. And the other 85% that you see here, the blue one, is actually the secondary market, which is the one that's hidden below the surface. The one guy selling to another guy, the individual owner selling to another owner kind of thing. This is a chart that shows you volume versus value. The reason I wanted to show you this, you see volume. You see volumes dipping. This is only first half of the year. That's why it's so low. But when I project the second half, I get a slightly higher volume compared to 2013, which is what I said just now. I think the market is beginning to start the improvement process in Malaysia already. Some of the measures that were introduced in 2014 for the 2015 housing budget, for 2015 budget, is what is causing a lot of the trouble in Malaysia. So I think you should be aware of this. But some of the good things that they've done is they've introduced 143,000 low-cost homes. This is expected to spur the market. You know, it's always makes sense when you spur the lower end of the market, the public starts buying, and then that translates to money moving upwards. They've got something called the youth housing scheme, where if 20,000 units of youth housing scheme limited for people who are buying their first home with a property value of up to 500,000. This has been put in place by the government to allow the more middle-class families, young couples to at least buy their first home. Yeah, and it's only limited to people who are married, 25 to 40 years old, with a household income household income less than 10,000. So if you're more than 10,000 ringgit, you don't qualify for this one. And then they increase your maximum loan period, and then they give you a little bit of a subsidy. So this is going to spur. Now, it hasn't started its effect yet, but I am very confident that it will spur the market into a little bit of action, and that will move the market upwards a bit. Yeah. And then we've got all these three bodies, Prima, Syarikat Perumahan Negara. These guys are now tasked with building hundreds of thousands of affordable homes. That's the buzzword in Malaysia, is now affordable homes. We want to try and build homes that allow the first-time purchaser to buy, because the rest of the prices of the properties have gone so high that most people are now unable to buy properties already. You know, it becomes just simply unaffordable. So suddenly, one fine day, the Selangor state government decides to make a new ruling and says foreigners who want to buy properties in Selangor cannot buy. Some zones they make 1 million, other zones they make 2 million. $2 million and below, you can't buy property in some zones in Selangor, right? It's crazy. It's quite stupid, because the total foreign ownership of properties in the whole of Malaysia is between 4 to 7% only. I understand in Singapore it may be as close to 40% foreign ownership. Certainly more than 4 to 7%. Yes. I always say this, and I say this at all seminars that I go to, and sometimes the politicians are there listening as well. If you want to be a truly cosmopolitan city, you must find ways to lure the foreigners to come and work and live and play and be part of your city. Otherwise, you cannot be a truly cosmopolitan city. So they make all these rules, and sometimes they are very stupid. They made this particular rule on the 26th of September, but they enforce it from the 1st of September onwards. So which means if you bought a property on the 5th of September, when you didn't know this rule was coming out, suddenly the rule applies to you and you're dead in the water. And even the radar survey said challenging sector for real estate in Malaysia. And in 2013, in 21st half of 2014, there were only 10,189 new houses launched. Usually, it's between 50 to 60,000 units of new properties which are launched every half year. But this was like a 80% reduction in supply because developers were scared. They were pulling back. They are scared to launch because they are not confident that they can sell. But some good things also came out of the budget. Not everything was bad. Some good things came out of the budget. And they put aside a huge amount of money for infrastructure, which is good. And a lot of this infrastructure is in KL and the Klang Valley. And some of these infrastructure are billions of dollars worth of infrastructure. The 3 highways that were announced, that this is going to cut traveling time for travelers within the Klang Valley and Kuala Lumpur. This is going to be awesome. The public transport, the MRT line 2 and the LRT, they extended the LRT all the way to Klang, and they created a lot more lines, which is really good because it's a huge catalyst for growth. The transportation system is going to be a huge catalyst for growth. So all these MRTs and LRTs is going to create a better public transport system, and I think what that will do is that will help open up areas which are further away from the city center and make those areas a lot more appealing to potential buyers. So what's happening in Malaysia? The context in Malaysia is, number one, the property market is rising. Transactions are falling, agreed, but the values in general are rising. Some areas will see a correction, but mostly it's going up. Residential properties, like I said just now, went up by 30-35% per year. Houses in major cities are becoming unaffordable already, or very fast becoming unaffordable. We need to address this situation, otherwise the property market will go even slower because most people can't afford to buy. Buyers can't afford to buy. Seller, very choosy, don't want to reduce the price. Our demographics are very young. Malaysia actually is still a very young country. 50% of all Malaysians are below the age of 25. 70% of all Malaysians are below the age of 40. And that really forms the band of people, the age band that is the biggest property investment age band. We got growing affluence now. We don't mind. We complain about the teh tarik in the mama shop. He increased it by 50 cents. Petrol price go up by 10 cents per liter. Tomorrow morning, the teh tarik go up by 50 cents per glass. In Malaysia, it's like that, yeah? And the guy will complain about that, but then he don't mind going and buying a 16 ringgit cup of coffee from Starbucks. And I always say, I think you do that because you want to walk around with the Starbucks cup. Why don't you take the Starbucks cup, wash it, put your own coffee inside and walk around? Nobody knows that it's coffee from your home because you're not interested in that coffee. You're only interested in showing everybody that you've just been to Starbucks and can afford to drink a 16 ringgit mug of coffee. Yeah? Our employment rate is very high, 2.5% unemployed. And this 2.5% are unemployed really because they try very hard to be unemployed. They make a career out of having no career. Changing lifestyles, our lifestyles are changing. The average buyer of Malaysian property now become very discerning. It's no more a roof over your heads already, no more bricks and mortar. He wants lifestyle, he wants branding, he wants the look and feel, he wants modern design. And as a developer, you must give him all these things, and as an investor, you must look for all these things, because eventually when you invest in a property in Malaysia, if you're going to sell it, chances are high that you would sell it to a Malaysian. So you need to delve into his thinking, and he's become in the last 5-6 years, they have become very sophisticated people already. They've changed their outlook on life. They no more just buying property. They want all these package deals together with the property. Right? Some of the trends that are emerging, if you're an investor, you need to be looking for these trends, otherwise you'll buy the wrong property. Some of the trends that are emerging is this kind of thing. You know, previously, about 15-20 years ago, if you built a condo next to a shopping center in Malaysia, it would be a total failure. If you put an office and an apartment block side by side or one on top of the other, it would fail miserably. But now, things have changed. Now the buyer is looking for more of these integrated developments and iconic townships. That's why you see the pavilion, you all know the pavilion, right? The pavilion has done so well that all condominiums around the Bukit Bintang area sell for between 1,000 to 700, 1,000 to about 700 to about 1,500 ringgit per square feet, depending on which one you are. The pavilion can sell for 3,000 ringgit per square feet. It's 100% more than its nearest competitor. Of course, it's a much nicer design, much nicer building, but I don't think it's so nice that it deserves to sell at 100% more. I think what they've done is they have built an iconic brand, and that brand is the one that is selling. It's like the lady's handbag, huh? You got a handbag for 300 ringgit, and you got a handbag for $30,000 and $30,000, right? But at the end of the day, it's the same thing inside. When the lady puts a car park ticket inside, she cannot find it anyway, no matter how much the cost of the bag. True or not? Huh? Guys, true, huh? So, the Mid-Valley is another icon that's doing really well, and it manages to get values much higher than the surrounding. Inner city living has become very popular now. KLCC is the best example I can think of. Previously, if you were poor, you lived in the city. You lived in some shabby little flat or a social housing or government housing. If you were poor, you lived in the city in Malaysia. And if you were rich, after work, you got in your car and you drove miles away to your home. Now that trend is changing. If you are poor, you have to drive miles away. If you're rich, you live in the city, right? And KLCC is a fantastic example. Earlier on, when they built about 5,000 units of apartments and condos around the KLCC region, they believed that most of these would be rented out to expats and foreigners. Now, the studies show that nearly 60% of all occupants of condos around the KLCC region are Malaysians, which means that old thinking of, no, I don't want, I want some grass, I want a little bit of grass under my feet. That thinking is going away already. People don't mind living up in the sky now. So that trend is changing as well. Fast-paced growth. I think KL is growing really fast. Say what you want, but I think our growth rate is really fast. We have outdone our own predictions, and we've become a city that's growing a bit too quickly, actually. In fact, rural to urban migration. Kuala Lumpur is a city of migrants. It is a city of migrants. Kuala Lumpur itself has 4.5 million people, I think, but maybe 500,000 people are actually originally from Kuala Lumpur. Everybody else came from all over, all the other parts of the city. Okay, so branding and integration become a great part of Malaysia, of the property market now. If you want to do well, you need to learn how to brand yourself. This is the W Hotel and Residences. So what they're doing, they got a retail mall here, then they got offices, and then on top of the offices, they got apartments. Beautiful. Hasn't been built yet, but it's going to start soon. When it's completed, it's going to be beautiful, nice integrated development. Same, Four Seasons Hotel and Residences, same. Condo block, service apartment block, and a hotel office block. Very nice integrated developments, doing really well. These are around the KLCC area, and because of the branding and integration, what they've done is this. All condos around KLCC selling for between 1,500 to 2,000 ringgit per square foot. These guys launching at 3,500 to 4,000 ringgit per square foot. Yeah, double. They just double their price because of their branding and their integration. They've marketed themselves well. Comprehensive facilities, absolutely a must now. You don't have facilities, you die already. Yeah, gated and guarded is definitely here to stay in Malaysia. Gated and guarded is absolutely here to stay. Okay, so access to amenities, of course, is a definite must already. So enough of data. What's the real score? You want to hear from me? What's the real score? Right? I also don't know. Don't ask me. Okay, so let's look at some of the hotspots. Okay, number one, as far as the Klang Valley is concerned, the mantra now seems to be, and Chin Soon was here yesterday, I'm sure he would have told you this, follow the infrastructure. Location is important, but is no longer everything, right? Previously, if you want to invest in properties in KL, it had to be the Bangsa or the PJ or the Ampang or Tamantun or Damansara Heights, that kind of area. Now you can go and invest as far as Sungai Long Cheras, Kajang, Seri Kembangan. Even Nilai also starting to do well already. Rawang, out in the boondocks, Rawang, 2.1 million they sold, Super Link houses, 2.1, fully sold in one weekend. You can learn you can afford to ignore location a little bit now. As long as there's infrastructure to your place and you can loop out into a highway and get into the city, you are safe. Or as long as there's some MRT line or LRT line that services your area, you're safe. So when you're trying to buy properties, look for the infrastructure, follow the infrastructure. Don't be scared if it's a little bit further away from the city. It's okay one, no problem. As long as there's infrastructure close by which can get you in and out quickly. That seems to be what people are looking for, right? I think Kuala Lumpur City Centre, I think the condominiums, 7,500 condominiums in KLCC. I think KLCC condominiums are grossly undervalued and are just waiting for a price correction upwards. It's true, because the average condo in KLCC can sell for only 1,500 to 2,000 ringgit per square foot. That is too low. Bangsa condo also selling for 1,500 per square foot already. How can Bangsa compete with KL? It's impossible. 6 months ago, a developer launched a condo in Kota Kinabalu. That seems to be another hotspot. At 1,500 ringgit per square foot. Same price as KLCC. He sold out on a Saturday and Sunday. They launched the thing on Saturday. By Sunday afternoon, they had sold out completely. And the average, these guys are rich, They are all hiding their money under their pillow. The Kota Kinabalu fellas. Because the average profile was a borrower who borrowed 30% only to finance his property. It's my opinion that they only borrowed to stay below the radar of the tax guy. Yeah? 30% borrowing, for $1 million property. Can you imagine that? That means he is having 700,000 cash. He just take out and he paid for it. Yeah. So I think Kuala Lumpur City Centre is a great location if you want to invest in KL. This location is going to see a price correction. KL Central is another good location because it's the transportation time. Yes, 2 more minutes. Transportation hub. So that's important. I just want to talk to you a little bit about Iskandar because that's where you guys are closest to. Yeah, you all know that Iskandar has been booming since 2006. Now it looks like there's a little bit of trouble. There was a damaging report yesterday, I think. So that's thrown some cold water onto the whole thing. But I'm telling you something, if you want to invest in Iskandar, don't be very concerned about all these negative reports there because they're very short-term looking. Property is a long-term play, right? If you're not prepared to invest in property and wait 5, 10, or 15 years, if you want instant riches 1 or 2 years, don't play the property game. You might get burned. If you're lucky, you make money. If you're unlucky, you lose money like mad, right? Don't play the game if you're in it only for the short term. And I think Iskandar is taking shape. I did a lot of research on Iskandar and I found that there is so much of infrastructure, so much of catalysts being prepared, being planned for Iskandar that I think in the next 10 years or so, right up to 2025, they have some plans. I think by 2025, I think Iskandar will boom again. Maybe now it will have a bit of serious setbacks because they've gone and overbuilt. Too many condos they build, never think of all the other things, just build like mad, and then now paying the price for it. Yeah? So these are the 5 flagship centers in Iskandar. I think the place to watch for is Nusajaya and Medini. I think these are the places to watch for. This is this is all oil and gas. This is logistics. Right? Now the game changer is the high-speed rail. This has now been announced. It's After a bit of ding dong, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. So this is a game changer. Kuala Lumpur to Singapore in 90 minutes. I'm telling you, I'm pitching this idea. Do not think it's unforeseeable that in the future, someone will live in Johor Bahru and work in Kuala Lumpur. It is not untenuous at all. 15 years ago, if you told somebody in Seremban, you all know where Seremban? 65 kilometers south of KL. 15 or 20 years ago, if you told people, why don't you live in Seremban and work in KL, they'll laugh at you and say, you're mad. Today, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people are traveling daily from Seremban to KL and KL back to Seremban. If any of you lived in England, you would know that unless you were super rich, you cannot afford to buy a property in central London. You had to buy a property which is 1.5 hours by train away. And every morning you woke up at 6 o'clock, got dressed, went to the station at 7. The train would come at 7. They're all the train punctual, not like Malaysia. So it come at 7, you got on the train went along for 1.5 hours, of course not high speed train, normal train, 1.5 hours, you got down in central London at 8:30, and then you walked to wherever your office is, or you took a little feeder bus or something, and got to work by 9. When I told my Masale friend, when I told my white friend this, I said, you're mad to do this every day. And he said, no, it's no different from you living in Cheras and getting up at 6 o'clock and leaving your house at 7 and getting stuck in traffic jam until 9 anyway. It's true, yeah? It's true. Same difference. Now, this is going to be a game changer. Do not think that it's impossible. I'm saying it is possible. Not today, but in years to come. It is possible. It's going to be a game changer. So that's the line. Stations all over the place. And I won't be surprised if I worked in Kuala Lumpur, but I lived in Muar. Because R1 million would buy me a link house in Kuala Lumpur, but that same R1 million would buy me a nice bungalow in Muar, and I can live in a nice, quiet, like kampong-like environment, and still get on a train in the morning and be in KL city center in 40 minutes. Amazing or not? I can live in Muar already. Living in Cheras, which is 17 kilometers away, and driving to the city is the equivalent of living in Batu Pahat and taking the high-speed rail to KL. Game changer, my friends. We must look at the possibilities. That's why I spoke at an event, a Nusa Jaya event yesterday, and I was telling the people who came there, my opinion is independent. I don't get a single cent if you buy or not, but I'm telling you to buy. Because I'm saying that people from Singapore will live in Johor. There's no doubt about it, because you have no choice. There's only so much sand you can pour into the sea to create more land. After that, you cannot pour any more sand. You have to come to Johor already. No choice. You have to get used to the idea. You have to live in Johor Bahru. So don't worry. We already carve out one part of Johor Bahru and give to y'all already. Take. Right? So these are the high-speed trains traveling from 250 kilometers upwards, yeah? So that's really fast. You can do KLJB 90 minutes. That's fantastic. Construction to start in 2016 and complete in 2020. I think it'll complete 2020, 21, 22 lah. This is a bit ambitious. I think in Malaysia, they start talking in 2016. Their work start only in 2018. Yeah? And DTZ, you all know DTZ. DTZ predicts that when this high-speed train is completed, the population of Johor Bahru will increase by 44%, which brings what I said just now closer to being the truth. 44% increase because of the train. And this 44% of the people will have to go and live somewhere. And why not they live in an apartment that you bought and you can rent it to them. Okay, so that's Iskandar for you, right? Now, Penang is another great hotspot just waiting to happen. Prices in Penang are very high. That's the only problem. Some developments in Penang are higher than KL. Link houses especially are very expensive in Penang. And I think if you want to buy also a bit difficult. But Penang is a great hotspot. Here, this area here is a great hotspot. Go and buy properties in Penang if you can. But I think the next wave, when I talk about next wave, I mean maybe 4, 5, 6 years. Next wave, I think, will be the mainland here, the Seberang Perai here. This area here will have no choice but to grow. It is the same principle as the Singapore and Johor principle and the Hong Kong and Shenzhen principle. We are not recreating the wheel. This has been proven through in other parts of the world. And as Penang gets more crowded and untenable to live in because it's too expensive, the crowd will simply move across there, and then they take the bridge or they take the second bridge, whatever, just come across in 5-10 minutes and cross up and down, up and down, up and down every day. 7 ringgit in toll, but never mind, they get used to that. And then traveling becomes really acceptable. So they will work in Penang but live in Batu Kawan. Work in Penang but live in Seberang Perai. So I think if you're early entrants, you can look at properties here, because I think in the next 15, 20 years, these properties will do very well. Okay? So anyway, I think the Malaysian economy will remain stable. I don't know, it's 273 now, yeah? 273. Somebody told me yesterday, I see you at 3. Right? And I think residential and terrace houses will still continue to be the best seller. Condo market expected to consolidate. That's just a nice word for shrink a bit. And I think nowhere is it more apparent than in Iskandar. So if you're going to buy condos in Iskandar, think carefully, because if you don't have long-term holding, if you got long-term holding power, you're all right. Wait a little while, let them bleed a bit, money come down, price come down, then go in and take it, yeah? But if you're going to buy landed properties, I think landed properties in Iskandar, commercial in Iskandar, or industrial lots in Iskandar, I think you are quite safe already. The growth is not spectacular, but quite safe. I think it's still positive growth. Okay? I think this year the market will start finding its own level. The knee-jerk reaction will be over. And what we have seen now in Malaysia is very apparent. The market is moving from the primary sector to the secondary sector. The secondary sector is less volatile, less ups and downs, less upheavals, less speculation. So the market slowly moving to the secondary sector. And I think second half of 2015, we'll see the market beginning to level out and start its upward trend again. Second half, yeah? 2016, 2017, here's my prediction. This is what you really want to hear. Here's my prediction. I think what happened in 2011, 2012 to 2013, the market went down by 4%. 2013, 2014, it went down by 11%, 10.9%. 2013 to 2014, I think it stabilized. The data is not out yet. We'll get it next week. I think it'll stabilize. 2015, I actually expected it to go up a little bit. But the GST came and messed things up. So there was hardly any activity in the first quarter. I believe there's going to be no activity in the second quarter. So the market is going to level out. But I think 2015 will also be a flattish market. 2016 will see a slow rise, yeah? And in 2017, I think the demand will start coming back to the market. The buying frenzy will start. And I believe that the next high is 2018. I believe that the next high in Malaysia is the 2018, early 2019, that kind of factor, yeah? So after that, you all take down my phone number, and if you all buy properties and in 2018, 2019, you sell, you make money, call and give me my 10%. Okay, thank you very much.